Well, everyone, welcome to this first 2024 video for Jesus in Politics. The two topics that you dare not discuss at Grandma's house at Thanksgiving or Christmas. And we all know this. With me today is my good friend, Jon Harris. Hi, Jon.
How's it going, Tim?
Thanks for coming on. And let's see, your first foray into Northern Indiana climes was in 2021.
I had been to Indiana, but I hadn't spent time there except maybe in a hotel room. So.
No, you don't want to spend time in a hotel room.
No.
You want to come to my house where there's a forest and
that's right,
trees and cats and dogs, right?
And cigars and whiskey. Am I allowed to say that?
Your first taste of bourbon around the campfire. Well, I understand.
It might have been, actually. I'm not sure.
It's one of those things where
I'm a Baptist kid, you know.
Exactly. Well, you see, I'm a Christian, and right. So we're having our 5th annual Jesus in Politics conference coming up. Let me just give some dates and all the speakers. It will be October 19th. That's a Saturday. And this year, my dear friend Jason Gingrich is hosting it at Maple Grove Church. This is in Topeka, Indiana. It's 25 minutes north of where I'm sitting, and it's a great facility. I hope we have enough room this year. Not only myself, but Jon Harris is one of the speakers. Joe Spurgeon, our friend from Southern Indiana. Rod Martin. I'm really looking forward to having Rod be one of the speakers. Do you know him, Jon? Have you ever met?
Yeah, I don't think I met him in person. I've talked to him on Zoom like we're doing now, and I've messaged with him over the course of a few years now, I guess.
I met him at the Founders Conference in Louisville in 2019 and just really impressed, and what a good guy. Also, Andrew Isker. And Andrew and I have a long history together, but Andrew's most famously written the book, The Boniface. Sorry, not Boniface. Is it Boniface?
Boniface.
Boniface, right. Not Benedict, Boniface, The Boniface Option.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the year before had written a book on Christian nationalism. Andrew's a good guy. And the man who awoke the ire of the the far right watch or whatever it was. William Wolfe will also be coming to speak.
That's right.
So we have a really good selection. We've got 2 pastors, myself and Joe. We've got you. You've been doing a lot of work over the past, what's it been, 7 years, 6 years you've had your podcast?
It might seem like that, but I think it's only actually been 5. Yeah.
It's like the old married couple. How long have you been married? Seems like 50.
5.5, really, I guess. 5.5.
Well, I just want to say I have personally benefited from the work and research you've done. And
thank you.
Both of your books are spot on. I know you've got a 3rd one coming up. What's the title of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure what the title is yet. So
okay.
It's like the album, right? It's
yeah, right.
It all comes together, and then you look at it and you're like, that's the title. But
right.
So I've just been writing and on different things that are related to culture and politics. It seems to be thematically more or less about the natural order and
right.
how we need to get back to that. So that sounds pretty basic. Like there's a lot of books, Christian worldview, quote unquote, books on that. But this one will be different for a number of reasons. One of which will be I'm going to go places that, let's just say, Crosswalk or any of the major publishers, they're not going to go. So
10-foot poles will not be touching.
We will define what a nation is. We won't skip around that and just pretend everyone's on the same page, because we're not. And things like that. So
yeah, we're going to be discussing a little of that in a few minutes. Before we get going, I just want to say I'm ready for all contingencies. There's my Crusader on a black Charger. See him. And I also have the Green Knight, who is also ready for action. See this guy, battle axe?
I think that's a bad guy, the Green Knight.
Well, I've got both. I got to set up a battle with my
I thought about calling the book the Bed Forest option, the
Yeah.
you got the Benedict option, you got the what's the one you just said Andrew Isker wrote, the Boniface option.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like we need a Bed Forest option here.
Yeah.
Because it has to start with a B.
Right. The Bentley, the Brobdingen. Hey, so Jesus and politics. This is something that I've been not just studying, but actively involved in, at least since my early days as a Christian in the late 80s. Operation Rescue comes to mind. That at the time was considered an uncouth for Christians to be involved in. It was considered to be that's the realm of politics, and we don't agree with it, but we don't think we should be involved. Especially pastors would say that. And especially then, given my affinity for Francis Schaeffer and a lot of his writings and that kind of big worldview stuff. And listen, I know Kuyper has been co-opted by some on the left, but I think Schaeffer did Kuyper for Dummies better than anyone, and he would have never been a fan of the current progressive politics we have. Recently, Megan Basham released her book, Shepherds for Sale, and it's really causing quite a stir. I think because it is dealing with the unequal weights that are applied from one side of the progressive aisle of evangelicalism to the other side, that would probably include myself and you and many others. What do you think is the main critique that people are bringing to her book as we speak? Because obviously she's exposing an awful lot of the soft white underbelly of evangelicalism. I mean, boiling it down, right?
Yeah, right. So it's watching this kind of thing over the course of years. It reminds me of the Fuller situation when Russell Fuller whistle blew at Southern Seminary. I think Fuller actually got it worse than Megan in some ways. It may not have been as wide because Megan's reach is a bit wider, but Fuller's penetrated deeper into the heart of a loved institution. And they went character assassination on him worse than they did on Megan, from what I can tell so far, which is hard to believe. But it's all the same stuff. And a lot of the names are the same too, of the people, not all of them, but it's like you've seen one show, you've seen them all. It's like a rerun. And I remember during that situation, there was the stated reasons for objecting, and then there were what seemed to be the actual reasons. And I think it's the same thing here. The real reasons that people are objecting is they don't like what she has to say. They don't like how they're portrayed. They don't like the exposure, because light exposes darkness. That's really, I think, the bottom line. But the stated reasons that they're putting out there to try to quell Megan's reach and popularity of her book is that she is lying. She's a sellout politically to the right, that she's in the can for Trump, and that's what's motivating this. But they're questioning her motives. They're questioning her journalistic integrity. They're questioning her character, her honesty. It's whatever they can find, and if they can't find something, it seems like they make it up. I saw Neil Shenvi yesterday had this whole thread where, and now he's making these little comments on X that seem to indicate exactly what I knew Neil was doing with the thread, which is that Megan's inaccurately portraying his pastor, J.D. Greer. But it comes down to, I think, a very, what's the word for it?
Are they missing the forest for the trees, though? I mean, we all know that someone can say all kinds of horrible, weird, even wicked things, and then hide behind, but I affirm the Baptist faith and message. I'm Nicene in my Christology.
Yeah, it's looking at things he said, J.D. Greer said in other places. And that's the thing with these guys. Like, think of a politician. Like,
I'd rather not, but okay.
They take it outside the realm of the church. And this is what's hard for people to grasp because they're used to viewing Christian leaders and pastors differently than they do politicians. But when you get to the level of someone like J.D. Greer, you can't. You have to view them in a similar fashion. They're public figures who have reached a level where there's likely been compromise to get to that point. They're an industry to themselves. And in fact, there's a chapter in the book that I'm writing now on this style of leadership where they're basically an empty suit. They're a personality, they're a brand, they're an image, fashion. It's not that they've actually proven themselves to be good leaders that's brought them to this point. It's that they go along with the party line and they have a face that can be used to forward the needle for the party. That's basically what's going on. And I argue that over the course of many pages. But Greer is one of those people. And I think when you look at him, you have to think of someone like, think of who's running for president right now, even.
I'd rather not, but okay.
Yeah, think of Kamala Harris and her new running mate. And think of... and you could do this, I guess, with some politicians on the quote unquote right as well. But I think it's easier for conservatives to think of a politician on the left to get the point across. How many things did that person do to get to where they are? What kinds of things did they have to do? And what kinds of things did they have to say? And we're just used to this. A politician will say what they need to say to get elected, to get in the position they're in, to get pressure off their back. And oftentimes you can find them saying things on two sides of an issue. Right. Because that's how politicians work. And it's the same thing with these guys. And I think this is part of the thing that Neil Shenvi's banking on with Greer is, well, look, Greer made this whole speech and he says things that are general enough or vague enough, or they're things that someone on the right can take and insert their own assumptions into and make it palatable. There's things that someone on the left can insert and make assumptions they can insert and make it palatable to them. Because Greer speaks like a politician, as does Russell Moore, as does David French, So go down the line. These people speak in these often duplicitous kind of ways. And so if someone comes along like Megan Basham, and she looks at Greer, and she looks at a number of things he said over the course of years, and she tries to interpret, this is what Greer's doing. Look, he's disingenuous. He's a hypocrite. He's pushing the needle left, all the while he's saying he's orthodox on theology and all of this. And she tries to make sense of that. Then you can come along if you wanted to defend Greer and say, but look what he said over here that sounds orthodox. And look, you're attributing bad motives because you're summarizing him here. And here's some things that don't seem to match or fit your paradigm. Well, the thing is, that's because of the way that they speak, because of the deceptive nature of what they're doing. They set themselves up for that kind of thing on purpose. Same thing with Gavin Ortland. And I listened to his thing, and everything Megan said is accurate about him. This is what he's doing. But she even admits, so there's tension in what he's saying because he's trying to speak out of both sides of his mouth. Right. So these people push the needle left, but they do speak out of both sides of their mouth. And that's what makes it difficult.
Well, I think one of the key sayings, I mean, we have it at Syracuse Baptist, is that men speak directly. They don't hedge their bets. They say what they think. They mean what they say. These men, I don't think, do. And I also watched Gavin's 2022 Creation Care video. Yeah. And to be honest, I thought Megan treated him with, pretty kid gloves. I mean, it's like he's saying, hey, I just want to have this talk. And then he spends the next 10 minutes with this litany of all of these problems that are just right there. They're insurmountable. Did you hear what he said about the coastlines? Yeah. And then we just go back and there's the picture of the Statue of Liberty, 100 years ago, picture of the Statue of Liberty.
Well, look at what he said on his private Discord account. I guess it's not private, it's a public account, but on Discord, he is, for the last few years, he's been slamming Megan. Yeah. And saying negative things about her. And then he puts out this video and he's like, I pray for her family. And I just love her. And I just want to have a conversation at some point, but she's being so mean to me.
Malicious
These
troll,
people are effeminate manipulative.
I agree.
This is why this is one of the reasons why some men they don't want to go to church. When the churches look like this, when they're led by people like Gavin Ortland with their soft hands and their emotive, just
hand
deceptive.
wringing.
We can look. This is one of the things too. My wife and I have talked about this before. It's an interesting dynamic. You ever notice this with your wife, that women can see things in women that we can't see sometimes, where we
absolutely
we can be played like a fiddle, and they'll come to us and they'll be like, she's playing you like a fiddle. She doesn't need what she says she needs. She's being deceptive here, here, and here. She's manipulating you. And you know, and I mean, you know, especially in ministry, you see this kind of thing. And as a man, I'm just like, I didn't see any of that. I really thought this was a sob case. And the thing is, though, it goes the other way too. Men can sometimes detect in men these kinds of things that women don't always see. And I think that the Christian industry has been so focused on that middle class woman outside of Dallas who's a housewife.
That's right.
For years. That's who makes money for them. That's who buys their crap most of the time. This is who buys their stuff, their cheesy movies and their terrible books. And
their maudlin music.
We could talk about that for a while.
I think we have before, haven't we?
We have. I think they probably, they just have to go to Chat GBT and be like, make a song for us that's really emotive and effeminate. And but anyway, what you were saying about, we can detect these things. All I'm saying is, men,
exactly.
It's easier for me to look at Gavin Ortland and I'm like, I know what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. So. Exactly. Well, that's why, when a girl says, "Hey, Daddy, what do you think of Joe or Bob?" And Dad's able to suss him out a lot better than the girl with the stars in her eyes. I think really what's at the heart of this, and I've been talking about this for years. I know you have too, but and you've mentioned how they'll conflate the gospel with these applications of the gospel. In their mind, they see creation care, greater government oversight over welfare and children and all of that as being somehow linked to the gospel. And those are just policies, right? But every one of these things, and I really, when Gavin said that the reason that evangelicals generally have a knee-jerk reaction is for political reasons, so you really haven't read the books. I'm sitting there being insulted. I've read the books, and I've come to a completely opposite position than Gavin Ortland did. So what am I, chopped liver? You think that everyone's out here saying, no, I'd rather not give the state more power because they have the guns over environmental concerns. We've seen the effects of that. We just drove to Indy, had to take our daughter and son-in-law to the airport. There's a little town south of Wabash called Swayze. South of there's the big windmill farm. They talked everybody into signing it. You'll see signs, say no to the wind farms. A full 33% of those turbines were inactive. And you know how expensive it is to change the bearings on those wind farms? And it's all because someone said fossil fuels are bad. We want a green planet. I'm thinking more CO2. Huh. Anyway, I think there are massive unequal weights being applied. If they're going to impugn motives to Megan and not see where their own motives are absolutely politicized when they speak out of both sides of their mouth. I don't think we have to go much farther than saying, well, you're just playing favoritism here now. You're showing partiality to your tribe. And it's all the catchphrases that they're warning us how wicked it is, right?
You know what you are, Tim?
Oh, no.
Wait, let me show you what you are. Hold on.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this brief pause in our interview.
You're a rebel.
Oh, there we go.
You're a rebel. That's what it is. And that's what we all are. We just got to start wearing the hat.
Yeah, might as well. If you're gonna hang for a thief, you might as well steal.
You got to
something.
just do it.
Yeah.
My wife hates this hat, by the way. So
well,
I saw an opportunity. I'm like, I'm going to wear it. I'm going to put it out publicly for everyone to see. But seriously, that's you're. It's so cheesy. You're bucking though what all the elites in every institution want, which is more control over our lives, so that they can penetrate as deep as possible, and they want the whole economy to be
Oh, yeah.
filtered through them. And so,
Right.
I mean, that's really the bottom line. Gavin Ortland's carrying their water, and people wonder what's in it for him. What's in it for Jonathan Moo,
Yeah.
or Catherine Hayhoe,
Right.
or to be honest with you, even someone like a Mark Liederbach, who is my ethics professor at Southeastern, who has kind of started to go down this direction. What's in it for these guys? Why go with the climate alarmism? And the reason, I think, is when you're playing with the big boys, or you want to play with the big boys, you're an academic, you have a podcast, you are you want to rub shoulders with powerful people, you're at a big mega church,
and you have an income.
You want to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And there really doesn't have to be anything more than that. Sometimes there's, as Megan's pointed out, there can be funding and that kind of thing that comes in, and that happens, but you don't even need that. These guys are willing to sell themselves for, I think, the accolades and for some, the most genuine people in this who adopt the climate alarmism, they're just, by kind of the environment that they're in through osmosis, they're just they're swimming in that water, so they become like that.
Yeah,
that's what it is. They want to be thought of well by elites. It's the same reason they went with the COVID narrative, most of them, and the BLM narrative, most of them, and it's the same story over and over.
Yeah. They
need to be a rebel. That's what it is.
It's like C.S. Lewis pointed out in That Hideous Strength. You want to wear the leather elbow on your jacket. You want to be one of the, what did Schaefer go, the Cambridge Blue, the inner circle, the ring, and you just end up drinking in this environment. And I think with the Gospel Coalition folks, and you could name a number of others, there is this assumed posture of gentle and lowly, which, by the way, Gavin wasn't very gentle and lowly when he called Megan a pernicious troll, militia. I can't remember, but troll was in there, right?
I'm trying to remember. I could pull it up, but yeah.
And I think that way of thinking, which is, I think if we're going to go to scripture and say, this is why this is wrong, it's based on the fear of man. You really care what people think about you rather than the fear of the Lord and the primacy of the authority of Christ over your life, rather than trying to make everyone happy. And what you always end up doing is making somebody.
Yeah, he said that she's a relentless troll. That's
relentless, a pernicious canid from Willy Wonka. Well, let's talk about then, because I'm only about a third of the way through the book. A lot of the stuff I'm already aware of. And I think it's so helpful. What I'm seeing a lot, let me just tie my thoughts together a little, on X and on other social media, is that people can't think in categories. They jump around, they leap from here to there, rather than staying on the focus. And by the way, when they say she misquoted him as saying "love your neighbor," that wasn't in quotes. They don't even have their critique correct. All it was is italics, which basically summarized the reason Gavin makes all this hay over very questionable data points. Yeah,
it's a weird thing to even have to defend her on. It's like, this is just how people have conversations. Even like, we summarize, right? Like, if I came to you, Tim, and I was like, here's 10 reasons to be concerned about climate alarmism. It's one, it's going to hurt other people. Two, it's going to destroy people's livelihoods. Three, and I go down the line.
All the way, yeah.
And then the end, you summarize my 10 points and say, well, you're saying that we need to love our neighbor, and that's why you should be concerned. Yeah, that's what they're freaking out about. Basically, it's so stupid.
I know, and for it, it's kind of like what Greer did with William Wolf on X yesterday about, well, I never said they were members of my church, and it's like this constant plausible deniability is not.
Did you see my post this morning on that?
Did I miss it? But you're right.
It was like maybe an hour and a half ago. I posted. So there actually is a couple that was at Greer's church for years who, and I think Protestia, or maybe it was Reformation Charlotte, had previously reported on the wife that she had said she was leading a small group. You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I decided to just, out of curiosity's sake, to go look at the husband's Twitter profile and stuff. So it didn't take me long. And Sure, because now she's saying like, oh, my husband ran the small group. It wasn't me, so you can't pin this on Greer. So I went to the husband's profile. Well, he's pro-choice too.
Yeah,
it turns out he's made posts that only a pro-choice person would make, like the church should spend less time trying to make abortion illegal and more time trying to make the conditions different so women don't choose abortion. Right? It's pro-choice arguments.
Yeah, the whole thing.
But I'm just like, okay, so your husband shares your view on this to some extent. And he was leading the small group. You were a Sunday school teacher. You both had to be members to do these things.
That's right.
And you were there for years. And then here's the big thing, Tim. She says multiple times on her X account, I just posted one of the screenshots this morning on my Twitter, but she says that when this all blew up, if you remember when it was, I think, Protestia or Pulpit and Pen, whatever it was called at the time, when they started going after her for this and saying, you have a member who's pro-choice leading a small group.
Yeah.
What did the church do? And she specifically says J.D. Greer, her pastors, she's never talked to him, but his guys, his people reached out to her.
Right.
And they didn't discipline her. They didn't take her, they didn't enter a process of discipline, or she doesn't say that they stop them from doing ministries or anything like that. This is the advice they gave. According to her, ignore Pulpit and Pen. That's what they told her to do. Just ignore them. So then they left, and I don't know if this was 2022. It sounds like it was around that time. They left the church over Greer himself. According to her, they left over their own problems with Greer, and he wasn't taking like abuse seriously enough. He hired someone who had problems, that kind of thing. So they weren't kicked out because of their stance. Doesn't sound like they were even challenged because of their stance in any meaningful way. They were just told to ignore Pulpit and Pen. Yeah. Well, this is like, it just proves Megan's point.
If there's one issue that should be a Romans 13, you bear the sword not in vain, you should punish the wicked, it's the issue of murdering babies. And I wrote on my X profile a couple of days ago, I said, how can you imagine being someone who's either pro-affirming or pro-abortion, at least in that sense, attending even a second service at Syracuse Baptist? Because we're literally saying, God, we're asking you to break the teeth in the jaws of those who oppose your creation mandates, your order, and either break their teeth or bring them into the fold, but don't let them keep on doing it. It'd be like, if you're in the middle of a series on the 5 points, it's like a Wesleyan sitting there just grinding his teeth at every syllable, and I think that probably marks the kind of ecclesiastical issues that we have in the church anyway. So people can't think in categories. They're not discipled to do so. They can easily jump around from, he says all this good stuff over here. So that obviously counters all the critical theory and other idiocy over here.
Right.
What I found interesting too is that these guys are of a certain generation. They're establishment. My dad would call them company men or regular army. But there's really I think there's a whole host of smuggled in assumptions that has to do with American Christianity and that idea of a proposition nation rather than people and local and those good connections that we have naturally. Do you want to maybe flesh that out a little bit? Because I think it's part of the equation.
Go to 1607project.com.
There we go. Yeah. By the way, that is so good, John.
Did you watch it?
Yeah. It's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, I'm really having a hard time getting traction. I've been on a few little podcasts to talk about it, but I've been trying to get it to the big boys, and I don't know what it is. I think there's just I don't know. I think the proposition nation, one of the inhibitions I have is that it is so ingrained on the right now.
Oh boy!
That if you question it, it's very hard for you to get traction. They freak out. They think
that whole montage in the beginning of everyone talking about America's an idea, like it's up here in the ether. Okay.
Yeah, that was
There are ideas, but good night.
So people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is a historical documentary. You can go 1607project.com and watch it. But
we'll link it below, by the way.
Yeah, go ahead, do that. But so we finished the documentary and I showed it at the Abbeville Institute's conference earlier this year. And there was some feedback I got, some of it constructive, but, do this, this, and this. But one of the things that we were talking about afterward, because we wanted to change a few things, was there's no shark attack. And in documentaries, you have to have your shark attack scene, the thing that grips you. And so I think I was the one that came up with this idea. I said, why don't we have just like a bunch of politicians and leaders that in our country talking about that America's just an idea? Yeah. Because that's what this is trying to combat. And we'll just put it at the beginning. We'll just start the whole thing, because this is the lingua franca. This is what we're all used to hearing from both sides of the aisle. If there is an American religion, a political religion that both sides agree on, it's this. They are united. They're in sync on this question. And you think the parties hate each other. Yeah, but they are united on this.
Yeah.
And you can't question the notion that America is an idea. You start talking about, well, maybe these states should do their own thing over here. It's like, oh no, that you can't do that. The map has to look this way.
Right.
You start, there's a stolen election and we should go into the Capitol or whatever. That's the temple of democracy. They have this religious language. They
used all those words are sacred and temple. And I'm like, yeah, it's your religion. 51% democracy. That's who you worship.
Yeah.
No question.
And for them, though, the pillar of this, or the cornerstone, is America's an idea. It's equality.
Right.
It's freedom and equality. These are vague notions that they will manipulate and use however they want to. That's why they like them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's what they worship. They worship this as individual freedom and we should expand this as far as possible so you can be true to yourself, whatever that is. And and that's really like that's part of their religious ethos too. And that's what America represents. And so so in the 1607 Project, we go through why that's terrible, why that makes no sense. And then we want people to fall in love with their actual country, the things that make their country great. Trump actually, I think, is a breath of fresh air on this, because he doesn't go along with it.
Right.
The Proposition Nation people have become more and more about trying to show the United States as this story of emancipation, that we're just gaining greater and greater levels of egalitarian freedom. And that's really what defines our people. And Trump doesn't see it that way. Trump sees it as a sacrificial narrative where tangible, actual people came here and they've gone through so many deprivations and sacrifices to bring us the blessings that we have today, and we should honor them.
Right.
And that's what was standard conservative talking points for years until very recently. And so we want to bring that back. We want people to love the cuisine and the people, the land, the industries, the political theory that's unique to us, the way that we do politics. We want them to love the music. I thought you might find that section kind of interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
12-bar blues.
Anything that bubbles up from actual musicians just jamming together. I'm all about that. That's good.
Yeah. This Scottish, what do they call it? Scottish clicks, or Scottish, I think maybe I don't have the technical word for it. Scottish snaps.
Yeah.
Scottish snaps and 12-bar blues. Like these things are like very definitive of American music. And we have a interesting sound that we've come up with here.
Oh, yeah.
In the United States.
It's called Americana music. Like a couple of I think some of the songs on my battle hymns is definitely in that Americana vein. It kind of happens because of your surroundings. One of the things that I definitely want to be mindful of, though, as well, is that, in fact, I was just talking to a brother a couple of weeks ago, and we were by the fire pit having some sticks, and we were talking about this wave of invasion that's taken place in the last 4 years, especially from the southern border. And you've walked in my woods. This This is because my great-great-grandpa, Frank Bushong, had the foresight to buy a whole bunch of acreage in this wilderness of northern Indiana at the time. And that's why I have land, because of my forefathers. He had land because of his forefathers, and it goes back and back generations. People that have been here for hundreds of years in a proposition nation, they have no more skin in the game than someone that just showed up, put their feet on the magic dirt, and is granted citizenship. That's not normal. Who thinks like that? Well, who indeed?
Yeah, we would never apply this to our homes. We would never say
no.
A guest has as much right to what we've built as we who built the house ourselves. We would never say that. In fact, you have a story, I believe, of some hippies years ago treating.
Oh, you remember? Yes.
Yeah, they treated your woods like it was their own. They just started camping there, and you had to kick them out.
Yeah. Hey, man, you're harshing my mellow. That was a fun time.
They could say that your property is just an idea, it's
just it's whoever gets here, that's yours. And the thing is, though, again, I think one of the main problems I have in a lot of the discourse is that there aren't equal standards. They don't care about this. And as my friend said, they don't care about hundreds of years. They don't care about your woods. They will throw you under the bus as soon as you make a bad tweet, if they get to, like they're doing in England now. It's the law, something that might hurt feelings. You know what?
In England, it's even more profound because here our history is fairly new. If you want to start the clock, even 1607. Now, the thing is, I think we trace back to England pretty much. I mean, that's really what America is about. And
you've heard me say how many times English common law, King Alfred. Come on.
Yeah.
That's our heritage.
The other people, immigrant groups that have come here have had to integrate into this.
That's right.
And it takes generations really to do so.
Yeah.
The German settlers in the Midwest, of which I have some of that blood in me, not as much. I have primarily English blood, but they had to start speaking English. They had to learn a different way of life. And it really wasn't until their grandchildren probably that, maybe their kids a little bit, but their grandchildren, that there was a true integration. And that comes through intermarriage and time and experience and shared destinies and shared struggles. You have a war and you fight side by side with someone else that binds you to them, that experience. These things can't be automatically built in a day
or conferred.
Rome wasn't built in a day. And in England, you're talking about generations going back to centuries and centuries of time. And you have someone there who, let's say his parents have been in England, his grandparents, and going all the way back to the time of Christ even. It's possible that you could have someone who's participated in every national struggle, his family or her family. They've been part of, the Magna Carta and all the significant developments in English history. And now you have someone from Pakistan who shows up. And they have, in fact, I just saw today on line that the police in certain parts of England have a 2-tiered policing system. So that someone from Pakistan has essentially more privileges. And the punishments are more lenient than someone who's goes back generations. This is wrong on so many levels, and this is a recipe for destroying your country.
I mean, I've got friends in England. I got folks that I've gotten to know online over the past few years. Jamie Brambeck from Ireland, Calvin Robinson and his friend, the actor Lawrence Fox, and we interact a little bit. And they're all saying this is nuts. It cannot be sustained for any length of time. One of these two sides is going to have to give. And, many have pointed out that the specter of secularism is that it's a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. You don't have no worldview or a neutral worldview. You have a worldview. And if it's not going to be Christianity, well, Islam will take its place. It's happening in Europe. It's happening even in my son-in-law's country of Sweden in certain areas. They're realizing that those policies of let's treat our country as a proposition and allow non-refugees to come into our country. And it has absolutely zippity-doo-dah to do with ethnicity on the level of, if you want to talk about legacy Americans and people that have been here for generations, we have to recognize there are African American families, there are Mexican heritage families that have been here for years and years and years. They're not the same people that are coming up from the southern border, and Chinese, Japanese as well. I don't mean to exclude anyone. Let's go down. Italians, Irish, Scots. My family's Swiss brethren. We were full on Anabaptist, and we happened to come here in about 1722. Been here for a while.
And became Reformed over time somehow.
I'm the first generation for that. So
okay, well you have 3 generations before you can be integrated. You're not even American at this point.
I know.
No.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
Well, tell you what,
but,
let's.
No, I think you're right though. I think you're absolutely right to make that point. And it sounds like we don't have time to delve deeper into that. But I would just say that some of the what are they like? I don't even know what to call them. Racial determinists out there who think you can take a biological test of some kind or a DNA test to determine everything about you, where you lie nationally. They're making a point, which is that their ancestry is definitely part of this. But one of the things that they have to realize is that there are a number of things that confer identity. And I think Stephen Wolfe makes this point a lot in his book too, is that shared experience over time in the same place is what binds people to themselves and creates trust, and then opens the door for things like intermarriage, and you can even have situations where you have 2 groups of people that have developed over time a symbiosis where they can live at peace with one another. That those things are possible. They're more possible with Christianity, but it's not as simple as take a DNA test. I could probably, probably match someone closely who's in Boston right now, who's, living a gay lifestyle or something. Our DNA tests might be similar.
Genetically, very, very close to that, but worlds apart when it comes to the shared experiences. And let's not forget your fundamental religious commitment to the Lord Jesus Christ always plays it should be the mainstay of all of these things, binding them together. One of the things I posted recently on X was I was trying to bring a little balance. I said, listen, remember that you take 1 Corinthians 3 and in the regeneration, there's no distinctions. It's talking about level of Christian within the church. We cannot show favoritism when we come to the Lord's Supper or when we're praying together and giving together, meeting together. Those ethnic distinctions aren't to be the main driving force. And I said, remember, CRT advocates have been doing this for years, and they'll segregate themselves in the church according to these standards. You can't have, you don't want to play that game at all. I think it's illegitimate. At the same time, you can't ignore the fact, we just had a big family reunion over at my mom's, and these are the people I love the most in the entire world. I'm sorry. No apologies. I love my wife, my son and his wife and their children, my daughter and her husband and their children, my other daughter and her husband. Those are my people. Then my sister and her extended. And I met a great nephew I'd never met before. What a thrill. What a thrill,
Same. Family reunions are amazing. You have a place of belonging there. And when people don't have solid families, I feel sorry for them, because I know they don't even know what that feels like to meet someone for the first time sometimes. And it's just a hand in the glove. You don't have to ask questions. You get along, things fit. You have a shared, your lots are shared together. You identify with each other.
You also know what buttons not to push.
You might know that too. Yeah.
Hey, we had a family visit last Sunday. They were visiting, we had this big lake. It's kind of a resort area. And they were there for Sunday school from the get-go, 3 little boys. He's African-American, really long dread hair, but massive man, just a manly man, right? And got to know him. And he came from a home where, it's again, the stat, 70% of his family are not married and stuff. And what is God doing in his life? He redeems him, changes that whole thing. Now he's got lovely family, 3 little bundles of testosterone, future men, and they're going to reproduce that. That's what God does. Let's do one more thing. We got about 10 minutes left. Gen Z propaganda, and why should someone who's Gen Z come to Jesus and Politics 5? What will they get?
Gen Z?
Gen Z, Zoomers.
They will get a free iPod. No, I'm dating myself as a millennial saying iPod and not iPhone.
Oh, man. I love those. The little square one with the circle.
Yeah. Oh, man. So many hours on those iPods. So what will they get? Well, I think if you're from Gen Z, you're living in a very confused world, and it's always been confused since you can remember. I can at least remember the 90s, right?
Yeah.
You can remember like the 1930s. So something, is it the 30s?
No, I was only a baby during the Roosevelt.
You were only a baby, okay.
Presidency, right? I remember the 60s and the 70s, and of course the rest.
The rest, right? So I think for anyone who only remembers the 2000s and forward, your life has been controlled. Well, it's been somewhat saturated by the gay agenda, by sexual perversion in your media, in your education. You don't remember a time when there was anything really wholesome in your powerful institutions. It was always corrupt. It was always bad.
Yeah.
And so a lot of Gen Z families as well are not intact. People are coming from a lot of dysfunction, a lot of moving around, a lot of just things that really distort identity. And then, of course, there's the technology addictions and that kind of thing. So why should they come to this? Well, because I think that this is going to give you hope. This is going to give you a solid footing in the real world and what actually matters and what doesn't. I think that there's men here who have a lot of wisdom to speak to the issues of today. And you need to hear from older men. You need to hear from people that have wisdom, that have maybe a memory that goes back a little farther than yours. I think this is going to be right wing, obviously. And so a lot of Gen Z guys are already trending right wing, but I don't know if they all understand exactly why. Part of it is they want father figures. They want men to be men. Right. And you always have been someone who's faithful to promote actual men. You don't put up a bunch of soy boys to lecture us about our feelings. So I think that's why they should come.
But my feels, Bobby.
Oh, and it's also really cheap. Like
it's very,
how
very
much is it
reasonable.
To go to G3 or to, ShepCon or these places? And frankly, not to knock those guys and not putting words in your mouth, but you're not going to get the same quality at G3. Man. You get it's a better burger for less money. You come to Jesus and Politics.
No, please stop. No.
I'm the one saying it, not you. So there you go.
Okay, thank you, John. I think it's going to be a good opportunity to hear a perspective that's saturated in a thoroughly biblical worldview. Like you say, I don't want to bring anyone in here who's not on that same table. Now, listen, we don't agree on every jot and tittle. I even allow a Presbyterian to come in and speak. Can you imagine what's wrong with me? And this year, I think
his name is Spurgeon, though. So
yeah, I know. Well, this year we have 2 of those, but let's just say this. I think that for the next generation, right? They cannot be satisfied with bread and circuses and with propaganda manipulation and all these things. If you get your roots deep down into the truth of God's word, of what the church really is, not the showman, not the empty suits, but that organic, living, vital community of faith that by God's grace I'm a part of and John's a part of, you won't be satisfied with anything else. And I think I would just leave us with this, that when you begin pursuing the natural applications of not just the 4 Gospels, but the entire Bible, all of this, you're going to wake up and see, wow, I assumed such and such, and that's not what the Bible says at all. I'll tell you one more thing. I just got a PDF from an Anabaptist guy recently. He says, well, this is why we don't do what we do or whatever. And I think I'm going to do a review on it. I think it comes from an official source. But one of those things was the old oft misquote of "My kingdom is not of this world. Therefore, Jesus doesn't care about this stuff." And I'm like, nah, that's not what he meant. That's not what he meant at all. So I want to think about the next generations. And in fact, just remember how many ways John uses the word cosmos, and you can get a clue of where we'd be going there. So yeah, I want to invite you to come. John will be one of the speakers. Myself.
Are you going to do soup? Are you going to do soup this year?
We're going to do, wait for it. Pulled pork.
Oh, well, you got to come.
You got to come. This is, in fact, I had the same people that are making the pulled pork for the conference made pulled pork for our family reunion. And it was the bomb.
Well, I'm a barbecue snob, so I'll be the judge, when I come. But
do you prefer the savory South Carolina sauce or the sweeter end of the spectrum? What's your preference?
I really love South Carolina cuisine.
I do too.
With the hash and so for me, Texas is the first. That's my first love when it comes to barbecue. But then South Carolina's next. Right. And I like Tennessee. The dry rub is great for ribs. Arkansas and Missouri barbecue, I think is really good. Sliced brisket, and I mean it's a little different than Texas, but it's good. The worst, in my opinion, and I know this will offend some people, and I lived in this state for years, but the North Carolina barbecue. You'll go to a restaurant in North Carolina, you say, I want some barbecue sauce, and they give you some vinegar. And these things ought not to be.
Yeah, right. Judge for yourself. You're reasonable people. Judge for yourself.
Yeah. So,
hey, thanks so much, John, for joining this morning. And man, again, blessings on you and your wife and your new little girl.
Oh, she's such
how wonderful is that, huh?
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Yep. Well, I'm a rebel.
Yeah, you're a rebel. I got to bring a hat for you, for everyone, so they can all be rebels.
Yeah, let's all be rebels and rebel against the system.
Bobo homo.
Clown world, fake and gay. What Bugman, Andrew? Bugman.
Yep,
that's what we're against. All right, well, this is Tim Bushong for Jesus in Politics 5. Jesus shall reign where'er the sun doth his successive journeys run. We hope you sign up and come, and we'll see you and meet and talk and hang out and eat barbecue. Right on.